What's up, everybody? Big Herc fresh out, and I'm kicking it here with the homie doing Tales from the North Side. He's giving you guys some insight on the political structure as far as Norteños and Sureños and the prison system, and just kind of lacing you guys because there's a lot of misguided information out there. What was the craziest thing you seen in prison, while you were in there, as far as being in this whole political climate?
Okay, man, I've seen so many crazy things, Herc. So, I did a 5-year sentence. I did 3 out of 5 in the state, and then I did basically 15 years, 14, and a little bit of change in the federal system. And I've been, I don't know, about 20 different prisons, right? And I've seen some crazy ass shit. So I've seen a lot of dudes get shanked up. I've seen dudes get knocked out of their boots. I've seen popos, like 10 popos beat up one guy, And the craziest thing I ever seen was I was in a state prison. I was probably like 21, maybe, and I was on this yard where there was a lot of Crips, and it was a big Crip gang group there, but there was a lot of Bisons there too. And this was a long time ago, so they were kind of just barely getting on the scene at that time. They really before that were only in the feds, but then the state started kind of picking them up a little bit too, and there was a riot between them. And I was on the weight pile, and I looked over, and I seen them they were going after the main Crip dude, but they were, they were getting down. And while all these groups were fighting, there was this one brother, man. I don't know if he was a Crip or anything. He might not have really been anything, but he was from Fresno, and I remember him because he had a little Jerry curl going on, right? So he used to have a shower cap on. Back in the days, I was like, oh, okay, he's like the only dude on the yard with a Jerry curl. And he was running across the yard, and there was like a group of Bisons chasing him, like 4 or 5, and they caught up to him. They knocked him down, and they started kind of getting on him. And then they were right next to the horseshoe pit, right? So they picked him up by the legs and the hands, and they took him over to the horseshoe pit and kind of got his head on the right over the spike from the horseshoes. Yeah, and then one of them just grabbed his head and try to slam it and spike it onto the horseshoe spike, and it just bounced off of it, right? It didn't, and then they did it again, and it just bounced right off it, and then on the third time they put, just shoved his head on there, and it stuck, and I was like, oh man, that was probably the most brutal shit I've seen in prison, and that was like my first year in prison, really. After doing all that time, that was probably one of the worst ones. The second worst one was we had this guy, he was like the weed man. He was from the Bay Area. He was a brother. He was a little weed man. He used to sell weed and stuff. And he was doing like 20 years. And he was down to like his last 3 months. And there was a younger black dude that was buying weed from him. And he kind of knew the dude was going home, so he wasn't trying to pay him. And so I heard the OG kind of hitting him up like, yo, man, you owe me, man. And then the young dude, he was a big youngster, so he was like, man, you ain't getting, you're burnt. You ain't getting paid, homie. Fuck you. And then OG was like, all right, okay. So he used to work yard crew, and he used to walk around with a shovel or a broom and stuff like that. He'd be out in the yard all the time. So the youngster, he was watching a basketball game, had his headphones on, just sitting there kind of grooving, watching the game, and I watched the whole thing. So the OG slid up behind him with a shovel and just whacked him in the back of the head and just kept busting him in the head and was like, you ain't gonna pay me, motherfucker, boom, and just kept slapping him in the head until his head just came in and eyeball popped out, everything, and just laid him out there. And then the whole yard they shut the whole yard down, and homeboy got killed, and they took the OG dude out of there, man, and we never seen him again. But I mean, you're pretty sure he turned that he was about to go home. Yeah, he was already basically 3 months to the house, and he probably got a life sentence out of that.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know if you want to add this, but the other crazy thing I seen in the riot was there was so many people in the riot. It was a bicycle riot. I think it was with the white boys. I'm not sure. I think it was with the white boys, it was against the white boys and the Southsiders. The Bisons against the white boys and the Southsiders, and there was so many biases and stuff laid out on the ground when they came and laid the yard down, that they were hog tying them, you know, like from wrist to ankles, and then they would come through and grab them, and they were separating piles, and they were stacking them like tires. So you had just a big ass stack of like bibles over here. It looked crazy. I mean, they're the human beings being stacked like tires basically, and they separated these groups and then came in with a van and trucks and just kind of threw them, were loading them in there like they were, you know, merchandise basically. Just here you go, like a UPS driver, and just throwing them in the back, and then they took off and they just scooted up out of the yard, and I was just like, that's some crazy ass shit. I mean, these are human beings. These are human beings, man. I mean, so that gives you an idea of the mentality of the way the administration views, you know, an inmate. An inmate is, you know, you're not even a human being. You know that.
Yeah.
You know, you know how you've been marginalized and treated just on that end of things. When we're a warehouse, you know, we're being warehouse, and we're warehouse merchandise, man, or cattle, any way you want to look at it. We're a beast. Some kind of lowly ass beast, man. When they stack human beings like that, yeah.
Do you think it's been crazier stuff in the state than in the feds, or?
I think it's pretty even. I think it's pretty even, man. The state goes a little harder. It's a little quicker and a little harder only because it's like everybody's a gang member in there. It seems like, you know, everybody's riding or tatted up or blasted up or going hard, so it goes a little quicker. Where in the feds, you have some civilians, right? You have dudes that are not affiliated to something, or you might have some white collar dudes, you know. So you have a group of cats that are what we call civilians, and you know, they're kind of, there's a big pool of them. And whereas in the state, it's rare to find somebody that's not affiliated to something. You know, you're with something, some group, because it goes so hard. It goes a little faster, you know. But they go hard in the feds too. Don't get it twisted. I mean, in the UP and then USPs, man, vicious, right? So, vicious, but yeah, man.
Lockdown's over. Get your yard time in. Exclusively at FreshOutSeries.com.